First contact. The observation vessel Celestial Seeker drifted silently in Earth's upper atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to human detection systems. Commander Zillith adjusted her sensory appendages, all 6 of them quivering as they processed the overwhelming data streaming in from the planet below. Recording status. Active. She spoke into the ship's log. Continuation of Earth observation mission. Cycle 53. This remains the most perplexing Class 12 death world I have ever studied. Zillith had visited 27 worlds in her career as the Galactic Council's leading xenobiological researcher, but none had confounded her like Earth. By all scientific understanding, this planet should be barren of intelligent life. The ship's sensors continuously recorded readings that defied conventional classification. Earth's temperature variations spanned from scorching deserts exceeding 50 degrees Celsius to frozen poles plunging below -60 degrees Celsius. Its atmosphere contained oxygen, a highly reactive and corrosive gas that would destroy the respiratory systems of most known sentient species. The surface experienced constant geological upheavals, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunami waves that could obliterate entire regions without warning. The planet's primary star bombards the surface with deadly radiation daily, Zillith noted, her voice tinged with disbelief. The gravity is crushing compared to most habitable worlds. And yet, somehow life had not only emerged but thrived. More baffling still, an intelligent species had evolved, developed complex societies, and begun reaching for the stars. Humans. Zillith's second-in-command, Narrows, glided into the observation deck. Unlike Zillith's crystalline form, Narrows was a gaseous entity contained within a specialized environmental suit, his consciousness manifesting as swirling patterns of luminescent particles. "Commander, we've compiled the biological adaptation data you requested," Narrows reported. "I believe you'll find it unsettling." The holographic display activated, showing detailed scans of human physiology. Zillith moved closer, her crystalline form tinkling softly as she examined the data. "These creatures have evolved systems that deliberately damage themselves to become stronger," she said, incredulous. "Their muscles tear and rebuild. Their skin burns in radiation and thickens in response. They deliberately push their cardiovascular systems to near failure to improve efficiency. Most concerning," Narrows added, his form pulsing with agitation, "is their neural structure. They appear to be hardwired to seek out challenges and dangers rather than avoid them." The display shifted to show human recreational activities. Climbing sheer cliff faces without safety equipment, diving into crushing ocean depths, hurling themselves down snow-covered mountains at dangerous speeds, fighting each other in ritualized combat for entertainment. "They call these activities sports and adventure," Narrows explained. "They do this voluntarily." Zillith's crystalline form dimmed slightly in what her species experienced as shock. No wonder the Council flagged this world for extended study. A species that evolved on such a hostile planet yet deliberately seeks additional danger defies all evolutionary logic. The observation continued for days as the research team documented human behaviors. They watched humans build massive settlements in areas regularly devastated by natural disasters, then rebuild when destruction came, often larger than before. They observed humans deliberately exposing themselves to extreme environments, scorching deserts, frozen mountaintops, crushing ocean depths, simply for the experience of conquering them. Most puzzling to the observers was human social behavior. Unlike most Death World species that typically evolved heightened aggression and territorial instincts, humans displayed remarkable cooperation alongside their competitive nature. "They fight constantly among themselves," Zillith noted, "yet paradoxically will risk their lives to save complete strangers. They wage devastating wars, then provide aid to their defeated enemies. They simultaneously create weapons of mass destruction and medical technologies to preserve life at all costs." 1 week into the observation, an opportunity arose. A remote human research facility in what the locals called Antarctica had become isolated due to a severe weather system. The human rescue teams were struggling to reach the scientists trapped inside. Perfect observation conditions, Sylith decided. We'll move closer and document their emergency response patterns. The Celestial Seeker repositioned to observe the unfolding crisis. Through their advanced sensors, they watched as human aircraft attempted to navigate through winds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour, repeatedly turning back when conditions became impossible. A logical retreat, Narrows commented. Even they must recognize certain limitations. But what happened next astonished the observers. Instead of abandoning the rescue mission, the humans adapted. They deployed different aircraft, modified their approach vectors, and when even that failed, a team of humans set out across the ice on ground vehicles, facing temperatures that would freeze their exposed flesh in seconds. This is beyond determination, Xylith whispered. They're risking 8 lives to save 5. The mathematical logic doesn't support this decision. For 3 days, the alien observers watched as the rescue team fought through conditions that would kill most sentient species in minutes. They witnessed equipment failures, injuries, and near disaster, yet the humans pressed on. When they finally reached the research station and evacuated the stranded scientists, the crew of the Celestial Seeker remained silent, processing what they had witnessed. I think I understand now, Xylith finally said. What makes humans truly dangerous isn't their physical adaptations to their death world. It's their psychological adaptations. She manipulated the display, bringing up combined data from weeks of observation. Most species that evolve on harsh worlds develop simple survival responses: aggression, territoriality, self-preservation at all costs. Humans have transcended those basic instincts. They've turned adaptation itself into an art form. What do you mean, Commander? Narrows asked. They don't just survive their world. They challenge it. They deliberately seek out hardship as a way to improve themselves. And most remarkably, they've developed a unique form of cooperation that actually becomes stronger under threat. Xylith's crystalline form brightened with excitement. This is unprecedented in evolutionary biology. The next day, Xylith transmitted her findings to the Galactic Council. The encrypted data packet traveled through subspace to the Central Worlds, where representatives of the 17 most advanced species would review her observations. The response came faster than expected. Findings received. Assessment changed. Human potential reclassified from curious anomaly to significant interest. Possible first contact protocols now under consideration. Xylith read the message twice, her form vibrating with surprise. The Council rarely changed classifications so dramatically. First contact with a Death World species had occurred only twice in galactic history, and both instances had been approached with extreme caution over decades of preparation. They're accelerating the timeline, she told Narrows. The Council sees something in humans that concerns them, or perhaps something that intrigues them, Narrows suggested, his gaseous form swirling thoughtfully. What exactly did you include in your report, Commander? Xylith activated the ship's communication system, displaying her final assessment. Humans represent a unique evolutionary path. They emerged from a hostile world, not merely as survivors, but as conquerors. They do not simply adapt to challenges. They actively seek them out, using adversity as a forge to strengthen themselves. Their societal structures, while primitive by Council standards, demonstrate remarkable resilience through a balance of competition and cooperation. Most significantly, humans exhibit a psychological trait I've termed adaptive optimism, the paradoxical belief that they can overcome any obstacle regardless of objective reality. This trait, combined with their physical resilience and technological progression curve, suggests they will be a transformative presence in the galactic community. My recommendation: initiate controlled first contact while humans remain confined to their solar system. Their Death World evolution makes them potentially dangerous, but their unique adaptability makes them potentially invaluable. 3 days later, the Council's final decision arrived. First contact authorized. Commander Zilith to lead diplomatic team. Approach with caution. These Deathworlders may be the allies we need for what lies ahead. Xylith stared at the cryptic final sentence. What threat could be so concerning that the Council would rush contact with a potentially dangerous species? Whatever awaited in the darkness between the stars, the Council apparently believed that these strange, resilient Deathworlders might be the answer. As the celestial seeker prepared to reveal itself to humanity, Xylith felt something unfamiliar, a sensation her species rarely experienced, uncertainty mixed with hope. These humans, these persistent, adaptable creatures forged in the crucible of a hostile world, were about to join a much larger community. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Crisis. 6 months after first contact, Commander Zilith stood before the full Galactic Council, her crystalline form deliberately steadied to project confidence. The Grand Chamber's 17 platforms, each designed to accommodate the unique physiological needs of the Council's member species, floated in a perfect circle above the central holographic display. Esteemed Council members, Xylith began, I appreciate the urgency with which you've convened this session. My integration team has made significant progress with the human delegation, but I must express concern over the accelerated timeline. The Vathera representative, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate mechanical shell, flared with impatience. Commander, perhaps you haven't fully grasped our situation. The Corthan Hive has breached the Epsilon barrier. 3 outer colony systems have already fallen. The chamber's atmosphere tensed. The Corthan, a species evolved from social insectoids with a rigid hierarchical structure, had remained isolated in their region of space for millennia. Their sudden, aggressive expansion had caught the peaceful Galactic Council completely unprepared. I understand the threat, Xylith responded, but humans are an unproven variable. They've barely had time to comprehend the existence of our galactic community, let alone integrate into it. Their psychology is complex, their reactions unpredictable. The Medusan counselor, a massive aquatic being suspended in a gravity-controlled water bubble, moved forward. Show them, it gurgled, voice translated through the chamber systems. The central holographic display activated, showing footage that made Xylith's crystalline structure dim with horror. An entire planetary system, once home to the peaceful Uldurians, now floated as debris around its dying star. Billions of lives extinguished. The Corthan don't negotiate, don't take prisoners, don't establish occupation governments, the Vathera representative continued. They consume resources, technology, entire biospheres, stripped and repurposed for their expansion. Our conventional defense forces have proven. The Medusan hesitated, inadequate. That single word sent ripples of discomfort through the chamber. The Galactic Council maintained peace through cooperation and technological advancement, not military might. Their defense forces were designed for peacekeeping and emergency response, not full-scale war. The Corthan Hive operates with perfect unity of purpose, explained the Tellarian representative, an arachnoid mathematician, whose species specialized in predictive modeling. Our simulations show their conquest pattern is devastatingly efficient. They strike simultaneously across multiple fronts, adapting their tactics faster than our forces can respond. The Tellarian manipulated the display, showing a spreading stain of red across the galactic map. At current progression rates, they will reach the Council core worlds within 17 standard cycles. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. 17 cycles, barely 2 Earth years, before the heart of galactic civilization faced extinction. And this, Xylith said slowly, is why you've rushed humanity's introduction to the galactic stage. The High Counselor, oldest and wisest of the Vathera, moved to the center of the chamber. Precisely, Commander. Your reports on human adaptability, resilience, and psychological uniqueness suggested they might approach this threat differently than our conventional forces. You're asking me to recruit them, Xylith stated flatly. a species that has barely achieved interplanetary travel to fight an enemy that even our advanced civilizations cannot stop. Not recruit, corrected the High Counselor. Invite, as equals, to defend not just our worlds, but theirs as well. The Corthan expansion trajectory will reach Earth within 25 cycles. The holographic display shifted again, showing the isolated Earth solar system directly in the path of the advancing Corthan front. The humans don't know it yet, continued the High Counselor, but they are already at war. We're simply offering them the chance to fight before the battle reaches their doorstep. Xylith considered this. I'll need to be completely honest with them. Humans respond poorly to manipulation, even when it's for their benefit. Of course, the High Counselor agreed. Full disclosure, full partnership. If they are what your observations suggest, they may see possibilities we've overlooked. 3 days later, Xylith stood in the conference room of the human diplomatic vessel Unity, which had been hastily retrofitted with Council technology to serve as Earth's first interstellar embassy. Before her sat representatives from Earth's major nations, their faces showing varying degrees of skepticism and concern as they absorbed what she had just shared. "Let me make sure I understand," said Admiral Helena Chen, the Chinese-American commander who had been appointed as Earth's primary military liaison. "You've known about these Corthans for centuries, but never considered them a significant threat until now. The Corthan hive has remained isolated within their territory for over 3,000 years, Xylith explained. They rebuffed all diplomatic overtures but showed no expansionist tendencies until 6 months ago when something changed. What changed? Asked Dr. Abayoni Okafor, the Nigerian xenobiologist who had been the first human to communicate successfully with multiple council species. Xylith's crystalline form dimmed slightly. "We don't know. Their communication systems have gone completely silent. The only Corthan prisoners we've managed to capture appear to be altered. Their neural patterns show signs of fundamental rewiring. Mind control," suggested Colonel Dmitry Vasiliev, the Russian defense strategist. "Perhaps," Xylith conceded, "or evolution, or technological augmentation. Our understanding of Corthan biology is limited." Admiral Chen leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "No offense, Commander, but your Galactic Council doesn't seem particularly prepared for this crisis. You've enjoyed peace for so long that you've forgotten how to fight." Several human representatives shifted uncomfortably at the bluntness, but Xylith appreciated the directness. "Your assessment is accurate, Admiral. The Council species evolved primarily on stable, resource-rich worlds. Our civilizations developed through cooperation and technological advancement, not competition and conquest. And we didn't," stated Dr. Sara Martinez, the environmental historian from Brazil. "Earth is a death world, as you call it. Competition for resources has driven our entire evolutionary history." "Precisely," Xylith acknowledged. "Humans understand conflict in ways we don't. Your species views adaptation not as a last resort, but as a constant necessity. You instinctively seek multiple solutions to problems rather than optimizing a single approach." Colonel Vasiliev crossed his arms. "So you're asking us to fight your war for you?" "No," Xylith corrected firmly. "I'm asking you to fight alongside us in a war that threatens all of us, and more importantly, to help us think differently about how to fight it." A thoughtful silence fell over the room. Admiral Chen exchanged glances with her colleagues before addressing Xylith again. "We'll need access to all your intelligence on the Corthan, their technology, tactics, biology, psychology, everything. Of course. And we'll need to accelerate the technology transfer program. Our current weapons would be useless against their level of advancement." Xylith hesitated. Council protocols strictly regulated technology sharing with developing species. "I'll have to get special dispensation, but given the circumstances, I believe the Council will agree." "One more thing," Admiral Chen added, her expression deadly serious. "No holding back. No paternalistic protection. If we're going to be allies, we need to be equals, even if your civilization is thousands of years ahead of ours. Xylith considered this demand. It went against centuries of careful, gradual integration practices, but these were unprecedented times. Agreed. The meeting continued for hours as the human representatives asked precise, insightful questions that often surprised Xylith with their perspective. They didn't think like council species, where council strategists sought elegant, efficient solutions. Humans constantly proposed unconventional alternatives, seemingly unconcerned with traditional doctrines or established protocols. By the end of the session, Earth's representatives had unanimously agreed to join the fight against the Corthan Hive. What choice did they have? If the Council's predictions were accurate, Earth would eventually face this threat alone if they refused to act now. As the meeting adjourned, Dr. Okafor approached Xylith privately. "Commander, there's something I've been wondering. Of all the species in your council, why approach humans first? Surely there are other Deathworld species with more advanced technology." Xylith's crystalline structure shimmered as she formulated her response. "There are other Deathworld species, yes, but none quite like humans. Most species that evolve on harsh worlds become extremely specialized, perfectly adapted to their specific environmental challenges, but inflexible to change." She paused, organizing her thoughts. Humans took a different evolutionary path. Instead of specializing, you became generalists. You're not the strongest, fastest, or most durable Deathworld species we've encountered, but you are, by far, the most adaptable. And adaptability is exactly what we need against an enemy that has countered every conventional strategy we've deployed. Dr. Okafor nodded slowly. "I see. So it's not our physical capabilities that interest you, but our cognitive ones." "Precisely. The Council needs fresh perspectives, unconventional thinking, and the psychological resilience to face repeated setbacks without surrendering to despair." Xylith's form brightened slightly. "In our observations of Earth, we've noticed humans have an almost irrational persistence when faced with overwhelming challenges. You call it hope or determination, but it appears to us almost like a cognitive defect, a failure to recognize impossible odds." Dr. Okafor laughed, a sound that still fascinated Xylith. "A cognitive defect that might just save the galaxy, then." "Perhaps," Xylith agreed. "The Corthan advance has been perfectly calculated to overcome our traditional defenses. They seem to know exactly how Council species think and react. But humans," she paused, "humans are the unknown variable they couldn't have anticipated." The next week passed in a blur of activity. Council technicians worked alongside human engineers to retrofit Earth's limited fleet of spacecraft with advanced propulsion and weapons systems. The technology transfer wasn't perfect. Human materials weren't always compatible with Council designs, and Earth's power generation capabilities were primitive by galactic standards. But the hybrid vessels that emerged represented a significant improvement over anything humans had previously constructed. Meanwhile, military strategists from Earth pored over the accumulated data on Corthan tactics, identifying patterns and vulnerabilities that Council analysts had overlooked. Their perspective was refreshingly different, unconstrained by centuries of doctrinal thinking. On the 8th day, the alarming news arrived. The Corthan Hive had breached another defensive line, overwhelming the Council forces at the Proxima Centauri outpost. Earth's nearest stellar neighbor had fallen, bringing the threat less than 5 light-years from humanity's home. Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting with Xylith and the core leadership team. Her expression was grim but determined as she activated the tactical display. "We've run out of time for preparation," she announced. "The Corthan advance fleet will reach the Sol system within 2 weeks at their current pace. We need to take the fight to them before they reach Earth." Xylith studied the human commander with growing respect. Where many Council leaders had responded to the Corthan threat with hesitation and retreat, seeking the perfect defense, these humans instinctively understood the need for decisive action. "What are you proposing, Admiral?" she asked. Helena Chen's eyes gleamed with a fierce intensity that Xylith had come to recognize as uniquely human, a look that combined tactical calculation with something more primal, something forged in Earth's unforgiving crucible. "The Corthan don't know we exist yet," she said, a slight smile forming. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." As the hastily assembled Human Council Joint Fleet prepared for departure, Xylith filed her final report to the Galactic Council. Humans have committed fully to the Defense Alliance despite understanding the overwhelming odds. Their strategic approach differs fundamentally from Council doctrine. They seek to create chaos within the Corthan's orderly conquest, to disrupt rather than defend. She paused, considering how to express what she had witnessed. Most remarkably, these Deathworlders appear energized rather than intimidated by the challenge. While Council species seek to restore peace and stability, humans embrace the disorder of war as an environment where their natural adaptability gives them advantage. Her final words reflected a new understanding. "I believe we were correct to seek humanity's assistance, though perhaps not for the reasons we initially thought. The greatest strength of these Deathworlders is not their ability to survive hardship, but their ability to thrive within it. The Corthan Hive is about to face an opponent unlike any they have encountered before." As the joint fleet departed Earth orbit, humanity officially entered the galactic stage, not through careful diplomatic integration, as the Council had always planned, but through the crucible of existential war. The most terrifying Deathworlders in the galaxy were about to demonstrate exactly what made them so formidable: human intervention. The Corthan command vessel Hive Dominance moved through space with the cold precision that had become the hallmark of their conquest. Shaped like a massive hexagonal prism, with jagged protrusions extending outward like frozen lightning, it led a formation of 64 attack ships toward the Proxima Centauri system they had recently subjugated. In the ship's central control chamber, Overmind Cathar reviewed the conquest data with clinical detachment. The neural network connecting all Corthan warriors hummed with perfect synchronization as they prepared for the next phase of expansion toward the insignificant yellow star designated Sol 3. "Resistance projection?" Thar inquired, its multifaceted eyes scanning the tactical display. "Minimal," responded Sub-Commander Virek. "Standard Council defensive protocol suggests a strategic withdrawal to fortify the Taz City junction. We calculate an 89.3% probability they will abandon the Sol system to preserve core world forces." The Corthan had come to understand Council tactics perfectly during their rapid expansion. The Peaceful Alliance consistently prioritized minimizing casualties over holding territory, retreating when losses exceeded certain thresholds, and establishing new defensive lines at predetermined strategic positions. Their predictability made them easy prey. Time to intercept: 47 hours until optimal strike formation. Virek confirmed. No significant. A proximity alert cut through the chamber's calm atmosphere. Virek's compound eyes widened as data flooded the neural network. Multiple vessels approaching from vector 227.89. Configuration unknown. Not matching any Council registry. Defensive posture. Cathar ordered immediately, the hive mind instantly distributing commands throughout the fleet. On the tactical display, 23 unidentified vessels appeared, moving in a formation unlike anything in the Corthan tactical database. Instead of the elegant, mathematically optimized arrangements favored by Council forces, these ships moved in seemingly random patterns, constantly shifting their relative positions. Scans detect primitive fusion-based propulsion systems combined with advanced Council gravitic technology. Virek reported, confusion evident in its normally modulated tone. Vessels appear to be hybridized. Before Cathar could process this anomaly, the unknown fleet did something no Council force had ever attempted. They accelerated directly into the heart of the Corthan formation. Impact imminent, Virek warned. But instead of collision, the lead vessel of the unknown fleet suddenly decelerated and released dozens of smaller craft that scattered in all directions, each targeting a different Corthan ship. The tactical display became chaos as targeting systems struggled to track the erratic movements of the small attackers. "Communication intercept established," Varek announced, translating unknown language. A voice crackled through the Corthan command center, speaking in a language none had heard before, later translated by the ship's systems. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of Earth Combined Defense Forces. Your conquest ends here." Earth. The word meant nothing to Cathar. No such species existed in their comprehensive database of Council worlds. Before the Corthan commander could formulate a response, the small attack craft began striking the outer vessels of their formation. Unlike the precision energy weapons of Council ships, these attackers fired physical projectiles, crude but effective, especially against shields calibrated for energy-based threats. "Divert power to kinetic barriers," Cathar ordered, but the command came too late for 3 outer vessels already suffering hull breaches from the unexpected attack vector. The Corthan fleet, designed for efficient, coordinated movements, found its formation disrupted as ships maneuvered individually to counter threats approaching from multiple directions simultaneously. The perfect synchronization that had overwhelmed Council forces began to fracture as each vessel faced unique, unpredictable challenges. Aboard the human flagship Defiance, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with intense focus. The hybrid vessel, Earth technology retrofitted with Council systems, shuddered as it executed maneuvers that would have torn apart a conventional human spacecraft. "Status report," she demanded. "Strike teams Alpha through Echo reporting successful penetration of Corthan outer defenses," her tactical officer reported. "Wraith squadrons are maintaining harassment patterns. Corthan formation integrity has dropped to 68%. Commander Zulith, serving as liaison on the human flagship, observed the battle with growing astonishment. This approach, deliberately creating chaos rather than maintaining formation, it contradicts all established tactical doctrine. "That's the point," Chen replied without taking her eyes from the display. "Your Council forces have been fighting with mathematical precision. The Corthan adapted to counter that precision. But humans don't fight like that. We're messy." "Messy," Xylith repeated, the concept alien to her crystalline thought patterns. "Unpredictable. Improvising. Willing to accept calculated risks." Chen's lips curved in a tight smile. "Making it up as we go along." The tactical display showed the 23 human vessels seemingly scattered at random throughout the Corthan formation, each operating independently yet somehow maintaining a coordinated assault that was steadily dismantling the enemy's cohesion. "Corthan neural network disruption at 31% and rising," reported the communications officer. "Our EMP bursts are causing significant interference in their command structure." This had been Dr. Okafer's insight, targeting the Corthan's greatest strength. Unlike individual Council species, the Corthan operated through a linked neural network, allowing instant coordination across their entire force. But this same connection created a vulnerability. Disrupt the network, and their perfect unity became a liability. "Tell Captain Singh to execute Phase 2, Chen ordered. Across the battlefield, the Indian vessel Shakti broke from its harassment pattern and accelerated directly toward the Corthan command ship. Its hull had been modified with a technology that had shocked Council engineers when human scientists proposed it. Biological camouflage derived from Earth's cephalopods, combined with radiation-absorbing materials that rendered the ship virtually invisible to standard detection systems. As Shakti approached the massive Corthan flagship, it deployed its payload, not conventional weapons, but adaptive electronic warfare systems designed to infiltrate and corrupt the Corthan neural network from within. This was warfare that the Council species had never considered, not destroying the enemy outright, but subverting their command systems. In the Corthan command center, Cathar suddenly clutched its cranial ridges as conflicting commands flooded the neural network. Ship captains reported receiving contradictory orders, defense systems activated and deactivated randomly, and targeting computers locked onto friendly vessels. "Isolate the network," Cathar commanded. "Sever all external connections." "Impossible," Varek responded, its compound eyes flaring with alarm. The infiltration has reached kernel level. Network segmentation failing. For the first time in the history of the Corthan expansion, their perfect unity had become their greatest weakness. As the corruption spread through their neural link, ship after ship fell into confusion, unable to coordinate defense or offense while maintaining critical systems. On the Defiance, Admiral Chen watched with fierce satisfaction as the Corthan formation dissolved into disorganized individual units. Now for the coup d'egress. All vessels execute Thunderstrike protocol. The remaining human vessels suddenly broke off from their harassment patterns and regrouped with astonishing speed. Council liaison officers watched in amazement as the seemingly chaotic human fleet instantaneously formed a perfect attack wedge and accelerated toward the heart of the now disorganized Corthan force. "I don't understand," Zilith said, her crystalline form vibrating with confusion. "Your fleet appeared completely disordered, each vessel acting independently." "Controlled chaos," Chen explained. "Each captain had mission parameters and objectives, not specific movement orders. They were free to improvise their approach, but when the signal came to regroup, they knew exactly where to position themselves. But the coordination required is something humans have perfected over thousands of years of warfare," Chen finished. "We learned long ago that rigid formation fighting falls apart under pressure. Adaptability beats perfection every time." The human attack wedge sliced through the heart of the Corthan fleet, targeting command and control vessels identified during the earlier phase of the battle. Unlike Council weapons designed for efficient, humane neutralization, the human hybrid vessels unleashed devastating firepower, overwhelming Corthan defenses through sheer concentrated force. Within 2 hours, what had begun as a desperate defensive action had transformed into a stunning victory. Of the 64 Corthan vessels, 39 had been destroyed or disabled, while the human fleet had lost only 7 ships. Most significantly, the Corthan command vessel Hive Dominance drifted powerless, its systems corrupted beyond recovery by the human electronic warfare attack. For the first time since the beginning of their expansion, a Corthan battle group had been not just defeated but utterly routed. In the aftermath, Admiral Chen insisted on personally leading the boarding party onto the captured Corthan flagship. Despite Zilith's concerns about the unknown dangers, the human commander was adamant. "We need to understand what we're facing," Chen explained as she checked her environment suit. "And the Corthan need to understand who they're facing." The boarding team, a mix of human special forces and Council xenobiological experts, entered the massive Corthan vessel with weapons drawn. The ship's interior was unlike anything in Council records. Organic technology fused with crystalline structures, pulsing with a rhythm that suggested the entire vessel was somehow alive. They found Cathar in the central command chamber, surrounded by the bodies of Corthan crew members who appeared to have turned on each other in the final moments of the neural network's collapse. The overmind itself remained alive but locked in some form of catatonic state, its neural connections severed from the collective. Dr. Okafor approached the fallen commander, scanning equipment humming as she studied its biological readings. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The neural structure shows signs of extensive modification. These aren't the same Corthan documented in Council records." "What do you mean?" Chen asked, keeping her weapon trained on the immobile alien. "The original Corthan were a hive species, yes, but with individual consciousness within the collective," Okafor explained. "These specimens have been altered. Their individual identity centers have been almost completely suppressed. They're closer to biological drones than the original species." Zilith moved closer, her crystalline form casting prismatic light across the organic control interfaces. "This might explain the sudden change in Corthan behavior. Something or someone has modified them, turning a once isolated species into perfect conquest machines. The question is, what are they conquering for?" Chen said grimly. "And who's really giving the orders?" Their investigation of the Corthan command ship revealed technologies far beyond even Council understanding. Systems that appeared to merge biology, technology, and something else that defied classification. Most concerning were the coordinates found in the ship's navigation system, revealing that Earth had been specifically targeted as a priority conquest objective, despite the Corthan having no prior knowledge of humanity. "They knew about us before we knew about them," Chen said during the debriefing session back aboard the Defiance. Earth wasn't just in their path, it was a deliberate destination. The tactical implications were disturbing. If the Corthan had specifically targeted Earth, a world unknown to the galactic community until recently, it suggested they had access to intelligence that even the Council didn't possess. News of the human victory spread rapidly through Council space. Species that had been preparing for evacuation suddenly found hope in reports of the strange new allies who fought unlike any civilization previously encountered. The Council itself convened an emergency session to reassess their strategy in light of humanity's unexpected success. Meanwhile, human leaders on Earth received the battle reports with a mixture of pride and sobriety. They had won their first interstellar conflict, but analysis of captured Corthan technology confirmed they faced an enemy of almost incomprehensible advancement. Only the unexpected tactics and willingness to embrace chaos had given them victory in this first encounter. In the weeks that followed, more human vessels were retrofitted with hybrid technology, and joint training operations began throughout the defensive perimeter established around Earth and nearby Council worlds. Council military leaders, initially skeptical of human approaches, now studied Earth's military history with growing interest, particularly humanity's long experience with asymmetric warfare and adaptation to superior enemy forces. The most significant development came when Admiral Chen proposed a radical change in strategy. Rather than continuing to fight defensive actions along the established front, she suggested forming small, fast-moving task forces to strike deep into Corthan-controlled territory, targeting their supply lines and command structures. The Corthan expanded too quickly, she explained to the Joint Command. They're overextended, counting on their neural network to maintain control over vast distances. But we've proven that network can be disrupted. If we hit them in multiple places simultaneously, they'll be forced to divide their attention. The Council representatives were hesitant. Such aggressive action contradicted their defensive philosophy and risked spreading their already strained forces too thin. But the human success against overwhelming odds had earned them credibility. "We've been fighting to minimize losses," Chen continued. "That's why you're losing. Wars aren't won by preventing defeat. They're won by achieving victory, even at significant cost." Xylith, now serving as the primary Council liaison to human forces, finally spoke in support of the plan. "Commander Chen's assessment aligns with our analysis of Corthan weaknesses. Their conquest strategy assumes conventional response patterns. Humanity has already demonstrated the effectiveness of unconventional approaches." 2 months after the first human Corthan engagement, Operation Hyper launched. 17 battle groups, each combining human tactical leadership with Council technological superiority, struck simultaneously at Corthan-held systems across a front spanning 200 light-years. The results exceeded even the most optimistic projections as the Corthan, forced to fight on multiple fronts without their usual numeric advantage, suffered defeat after defeat. For the first time since the crisis began, the relentless Corthan advance halted, then began to recede as they diverted forces to counter the human-led strikes. The Deathworlders had changed the equation, introducing an element of unpredictability that the perfectly coordinated Corthan collective couldn't counter with their existing strategies. As Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching her fleet prepare for their next operation, Xylith approached her with a new message from the Council. "They're requesting your presence at Central Command." The Crystalline being informed her. "The High Council wishes to personally acknowledge humanity's contribution and discuss expanded cooperation." Chen smiled slightly. "Tell them I'll come when this campaign is complete. We've got the enemy off balance for the first time. I'm not stopping now." Xylith's form shimmered with what Chen had come to recognize as amusement. "I anticipated your response. The council representatives seemed surprised. "They'll get used to it," Chen replied, turning back to the viewport. "That's the thing about humans, Commander. We don't just adapt to circumstances. We force circumstances to adapt to us." As the Defiance prepared to jump to its next target, news arrived from the front lines. 3 more Korthan battle groups had been defeated using human-design tactics. The tide was turning. The Deathworlders had entered the galactic stage, not as junior partners to be guided, but as warriors whose harsh evolutionary history had prepared them for exactly this kind of existential struggle. What made humans truly terrifying wasn't their technology or even their physical capabilities. It was their psychological adaptations to adversity. They embraced chaos as an advantage. They converted setbacks into opportunities. And perhaps most importantly, they refused to accept defeat even when victory seemed mathematically impossible. The galaxy was beginning to understand what it meant to have the Deathworlders on their side. And the Korthan were beginning to understand what it meant to have them as enemies. Retriclad can make mistakes. We've been fighting to minimize losses, Chen continued. That's why you're losing. Wars aren't won by preventing defeat. They're won by achieving victory, even at significant cost. Xylith, now serving as the primary council liaison to human forces, finally spoke in support of the plan. Commander Chen's assessment aligns with our analysis of Korthan weaknesses. Their conquest strategy assumes conventional response patterns. Humanity has already demonstrated the effectiveness of unconventional approaches. 2 months after the first human Korthan engagement, Operation Hydra launched. 17 battle groups, each combining human tactical leadership with council technological superiority, struck simultaneously at Korthan-held systems across a front spanning 200 light-years. The results exceeded even the most optimistic projections as the Korthan, forced to fight on multiple fronts without their usual numeric advantage, suffered defeat after defeat. For the first time since the crisis began, the relentless Korthan advance halted, then began to recede as they diverted forces to counter the human-led strikes. The Deathworlders had changed the equation, introducing an element of unpredictability that the perfectly coordinated Korthan collective couldn't counter with their existing strategies. As Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching her fleet prepare for their next operation, Xylith approached her with a new message from the Council. "They're requesting your presence at Central Command," the Crystalline being informed her. "The High Council wishes to personally acknowledge humanity's contribution and discuss expanded cooperation." Chen smiled slightly. "Tell them I'll come when this campaign is complete. We've got the enemy off balance for the first time. I'm not stopping now." Xylith's form shimmered with what Chen had come to recognize as amusement. "I anticipated your response." The council representatives seemed surprised. "They'll get used to it," Chen replied, turning back to the viewport. "That's the thing about humans, Commander. We don't just adapt to circumstances. We force circumstances to adapt to us." As the Defiance prepared to jump to its next target, news arrived from the front lines. 3 more Korthan battle groups had been defeated using human-design tactics. The tide was turning. The Deathworlders had entered the galactic stage, not as junior partners to be guided, but as warriors whose harsh evolutionary history had prepared them for exactly this kind of existential struggle. What made humans truly terrifying wasn't their technology or even their physical capabilities. It was their psychological adaptations to adversity. They embraced chaos as an advantage. They converted setbacks into opportunities. And perhaps most importantly, they refused to accept defeat even when victory seemed mathematically impossible. The galaxy was beginning to understand what it meant to have the Deathworlders on their side. And the Korthan were beginning to understand what it meant to have them as enemies.